like people like they are addicted to habits. They're addicted to the ritual. They're addicted. It's drug addiction, right? And so like I personally think that the capitalistic structure of society in America is so uniquely horrible. I think from the moment that we're born in this country, we are designed, like everything in this country and the society is designed to make us as dumb and as obedient as possible. Like the idea that we have to work all the time for such a minimal wage, we don't get time off. Our schools teach us garbage. They don't teach you how to balance a budget or how to feed yourself, but they teach you their American mythology about how George Washington founded the country and was a great leader. They don't teach you anything that they need to. And like they manufacture our obedient drones and workers that keep the machine alive. And that to me is the huge problem. And I think a lot of that is with food. Because, fast food also enables Americans to be able to have 2 and 3 jobs. Like one of the common criticisms I get when I talk about eating healthy is a lot of people say, I have 2 jobs. I can't afford it. I don't have time for it. And I'm like, first of all, I'm like, damn, that sucks. Like legit. There's a huge problem there, but also how did that even happen? Right? Like if fast food wasn't so prevalent, the idea of Americans getting a second job wouldn't be so prevalent, which would mean like Americans like wages should be higher. If like if there was a point where there's like, societal collapse because no one had any money, they would have to increase the wage, right? So I feel like there's all these factors in American society that are perfectly balancing this game board to be as disastrous as it is right now. And I think food is a big one. I really do. Because like, again, for most of my life, I had extremely bad chronic health issues. And then when I was 22, I basically said, I got to do something about it. And I did. And almost all of them are fixed. And it's like, like think about the health insurance stuff, like, health insurance and medical costs are so high. Well, in case you didn't know, there's a little factoid. When processed food and fast food began to, take hold in the American society in the 50s and 60s, and then with corn subsidies under Richard Nixon's administration, seemingly around 5 years later, that's when healthcare costs started to skyrocket. When the processed foods, when the TV dinners became a staple, when McDonald's became more popular, that's when healthcare costs started to skyrocket. Right. So people are stuck in these habits. Their bodies are breaking down. They're barely able to get out of them. And then people wonder why this country is run by lunatics. Right. Like, in my opinion, like, I don't know, like I could keep going, but like, I think this is all a perfectly balanced game board that's just designed to keep us all as obedient and consumeristic as possible. And
I think one of the best examples is Ted Cruz, because he's actually a very smart man and he conducts himself like he's a total moron. And the reason he does that is because he's Trumpified in the sense that he dumbs it down to the point in which, most people don't know that the average American has only a 6th grade level of education.
Fifth.
Or if it's 5th grade.
Well, as somebody who used to be in like trained for mainstream journalism, things are written on a 5th grade level. So like anything that you read out there that isn't like, something really complicated, it's written on a 5th grade level.
And being able to identify with our country, I think, is a very important point. And having good movement leaders, I think, is very key. It's not that you want to dumb it down. It's that recognizing that we really do have, it's the whole structure of the system, as you said. One thing connects to one thing. And that's why they fight tooth and nail not to let us have anything, because they know that this is basically tilted on its axis to the point where if even student loan debt were to go away, it's like the floodgates would open up. And they know that. They know that the people are yearning for a change. And I think at this point, they're just trying to hang on as long as they can. But as long as we're fighting with each other, as long as we're constantly drama, if that's all that we're focused on, and let's be honest, we know that the YouTube algorithm feeds that stuff. They feed into the drama.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all on that is all like on purpose, because these corporations make more money when people are making more content, and not like, I watch the Real Housewives, it's fun to watch them like bitch and moan at I'm just saying it's fun. Right. But that's the thing. It's fun. You don't learn anything. You don't gain anything. It's just popcorn garbage. And that's what social media has basically turned all human interaction into. It turns it into popcorn garbage. Now, that being said, popcorn, especially when air popped, is actually a really healthy snack.
Delicious.
I will say, I've been off of social media. It's been almost a year now. Like, it's been a long time, and I'm not on it. And it's really interesting. It's like, I feel like I've actually started to regenerate in my brain. Like, you know, like it's almost like connections are forming that haven't been there.
Other than putting out our social media posts, it's like, you know, the one thing that we can take away from that experience that happened last summer is when that happened, when the whole blow up happened on our show, that was like, we agreed, like, that's it. We're done with this. Like,
Yeah,
we're
I
going to
don't
put
need
out,
that.
like, we're going to put out our content and we're going to do the show and we're going to do what we do locally.
And you could watch it or not.
Yeah.
That's the
but
thing.
we are not getting involved with, like, I
Nope.
can't, like, I have a friend who actually will get into like these hours long, like, Twitter thread conversations with people. And I'm just thinking, how do you have the time to do something
these are
like
people that
that?
know life. But I wanted to just say to you, Andrea, like, what we notice here, and one of the big things that we're proponents of is community gardens, and we always have like a project out there working community gardens. And if we would invest more money in that and a little less money in fast food restaurants, but that's not as profitable. So that's the problem. So we got our first garden basically got ousted from gentrification. The new people didn't want a community garden for the poor people there. They didn't want that.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And so we are now having a community garden at a public high school. So it can't be gentrified. So that's at least, you know, better. We're more protected, I think, that we're at a school, but they don't want that. And all of the neighborhoods that most need community gardens have the most fast food restaurants and not good supermarkets. They have like corner fast, like quickie stops. And
that's another problem with food deserts.
Yes.
I used to live like the nearest grocery store, and I didn't have a car. The nearest grocery store is about 1.5 miles away. So if I wanted to go shopping, right, I would have to walk about 3 miles, half of that with like all of my groceries on my person. And like, that's a problem. And it's like, you know, if I were, you know, disabled in some way where I couldn't make that walk, I'd be screwed. And my only option would be for delivery or whatever. And that's a huge problem in this culture. And then a lot of people, like, they really don't like when you criticize like their habits. That's another problem as well. Right. Like, you know, people like are addicted to social media. I consider that its own form of a drug addiction. So when you like just question the ideas, like, what is all of this drama? Like, when someone's making like a 15 like thread, like tweet thread exposure thread on someone with 600 followers, right? Like, who cares? Like, all the time and energy you're spending on that, you could be watching a documentary, you could be learning how to cook beans, you know, you could be doing something, right? But instead you're like combing through someone's social media history since they were 6 years old to try to expose them, and no one knows who this person is and no one cares, right? And that's basically just sums up like all of these online slap fights. It's like, it's brand building. It's trying to like, it gets very capitalistic in nature where people want to be the one true communist, and it's just lame. And honestly, like, if you try to explain any of this to anyone who's not already initiated, they're going to look at this and then they're going to walk away instantly. They're going to be like, all right, these people are fucking insane. I'm going to go back to McDonald's or Wendy's and get myself something fun to eat, right? Because like, it's embarrassing. It's extremely cringe. Right. And people, like, they don't sit back and think to themselves, like, what am I doing? Like, where am I in my life? Like, introspection, I think, is another thing that like it's no one has it in this social media game. Because, you know, what's easier, like scrolling on Twitter, you know, or just like sitting on the toilet thinking about your life for 10 minutes, you know, like, everyone's got to have their gadgets. Like, when you're on the bus, like, what do? Are you sitting there thinking about your life, or are you scrolling on Twitter getting into slap fights like an idiot, right? And that's just a huge problem. And like, I think people really need to work on like what they're putting out into the universe.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.